Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, and we're going to get into another topic that has become or has gained traction more over so the last couple of weeks when Roger Goodell mentioned the idea of an 18-game regular season in the past. I don't think a lot of people really took it too much into consideration. I at least didn't. I didn't think this was going to happen this year or next year, but um, now you sort of see some more things develop a little bit. The NFLPA most recently, the biggest development in this entire situation is that they proposed an informal proposal to the NFL to potentially change the offseason structure, get rid of OTAs, rid of really the spring portion of the offseason program and make it a later start and just have it flow right into training camp and into preseason as well. That's really the gist of the proposal from the NFLPA, and how that has to do anything with an 18-game regular season. Well, if you think about it, a change to the offseason, making it start a little bit later, you have more rest, and that's probably the best parlay that you can have into more games or adding on another game if you give the players more rest in any offseason change that you want to make. And for that to happen, you need a realignment of the current CBA. And if you're going to do that about the offseason structure and that proposal from the NFLPA, you might as well talk about an 18-game regular season at this realignment negotiation that could be happening maybe in the near future, sooner rather than later than a lot of people think. It makes no sense to talk about the offseason structure changes and then realign the CBA and then realign it again afterwards to try and incorporate an 18-game regular season. They might as well all do it all together right then and there, but what is sort of standing in the way of that? What things can be discussed at this meeting between the NFL and the NFLPA to realign the current CBA? Well, in that sort of meeting, in those discussions, there is some things to go over with sort of how that all works out, because some keys to working out this new CBA and how this all could go down. Technically, they're not supposed to do this until 2033. That's the next set date to reschedule the current CBA that they already realigned in 2020. So it really isn't scheduled to happen for another 9 years. 9 years there, if my math is correct. But the NFL can opt out of their current broadcasting and streaming deals in 2029, which is important because of the reasons I will give you in just a second. Most speculate that the NFL wants to have the 18-game regular season, obviously, right? You talked about it, Roger Goodell mentions it before, and now people can't get it out of their head. It just keeps getting brought up in these conversations. So it seems like most people speculate that this is something the NFL wants to get done sooner rather than later. And I mentioned the broadcasting and streaming deal opt-out in 2029 because that seems like the optimal opportunity to opt out, obviously, of those deals and then really leverage your team, your league, your schedule now with new broadcasting and streaming deals. Now that you have another game added on, you leverage that a little bit more to get more money into that, and that way it makes more sense for this to happen before 2029 so they can opt out of it and then get more money, really, basically, at the end of the day, for the NFL to leverage their increased schedule with the TV deals and get more money out of it that way. But they can't get there, obviously, without the NFLPA on board. And if you know that the NFL wants to get eventually to 18 games, you could sort of leverage that now into your benefit and look into some of the key factors that could be worked out with this new CBA. One of the main ones, revising the revenue split potentially for the NFLPA and the ownership in the NFL. Currently, the revenue split is 48.5 to 50 in favor still of the owners. That was realigned and worked out by the NFLPA in 2020 when they increased it up to 17 games. So the NFL managed to get, or the NFLPA managed to get a little bit more of a bigger split in the revenue for the players because they increased it to 17 games. So the NFL gives them a little bit bigger slice of the pie there, so to say, in terms of money. So that happened lastly in 2020, about 4 years ago now. And now you want to talk about increasing it yet another game. Well, why wouldn't the NFLPA and the players not want a bigger slice of the pie even so than the $48.5 million that they have? That's probably going to be the biggest key to all of this if the NFL budgets on more of an even bigger revenue split than they already have, sort of surrendered there to the players. No other league in American professional sports has a 50-50 revenue split other than the NBA. The NBA is 50-50 in revenue split between the players and the ownership, and you see how much real power that the players have in that league. And for the NFL to get to that amount, if they're able to leverage that big of a split with ownership in the NFL, would be groundbreaking and just monumental for the players, because really I think in the NFL, I think most would agree that the owners and just the teams really have a lot of power in everything that goes on, obviously. So if you can get it to 50-50, that would be massive for the players, as one of the key points that this could happen, to sort of get the NFL to that 18 game in order for them to gain more money by opting out of their current streaming and broadcasting deals. They're going to have to go through the NFLPA, and that seems like the optimal opportunity, obviously, for them to maybe get a little bit more money from them in the revenue split. Maybe, just maybe, not 50-50 yet if the NFL really won't budge, but I could see them increasing it to maybe 49.5 or 49, or just getting it as close as possible to that if they're going to increase it to another game after they just increased it to 17 games just 4 years ago. But with that might not be enough for everybody in the NFL, mostly the players, because when you have a higher revenue split, that really only impacts the players that make a lot of money, and that's really a small portion of the NFL, if you really think about it, who really are the elite of the elite, making some elite money in the NFL. It's not by any means the majority that this will really affect if they were to get more of a revenue split. So what else can you sort of offer up to the players? Well, now that's where the offseason structure changes come, and that's where you offer up that extra time off in the offseason, where you're not starting back up in late March, early April with voluntary workouts, phase 1 workouts where it's just strength and conditioning. You get rid of all of that, you give these guys more time off, and that way you're offering up something to everybody that seems beneficial. We don't have to report until June, July, and we get some more time off, and we can only just do some virtual meetings in the meantime in the spring. That way you can get more players on board to agree to sort of this 18-game regular season that the NFL wants to eventually get to, and that way also in this whole negotiating process with the NFLPA, they're not only working around money, they're not only really focused in around money. I don't want to make it seem like that. You can also get more improved health benefits and maybe the field conditions. Everybody always argues and always complains about the fields not being ideal for them. They want natural grass. Maybe you can get that in as a negotiating plot in this new CBA as well. And also, if we're talking about long-term goals for the NFL and what they really want to get out of this, it's no secret also that they want to improve their global footprint as well. More NFL games internationally this year in new countries. That is only set to increase next season as well in 2025, where it goes up to a minimum of, I want to say 7 at least, that they're going to try and work out next year because of the new deal that the owners agreed to in December to increase the amount of international games. So the NFL obviously wants to do that, and if they want to get to that and generate more money from these international games as well, they have to really leverage here with the NFLPA and try to make everybody as happy as possible, come to a good compromise with everybody, and maybe you give up more of a revenue split, more health benefits, a better field conditions all over the place, all over the stadiums. All those are really the key factors that go into these negotiations that, again, aren't probably going to happen anytime soon this year. Maybe the earliest next offseason to happen the following year after that, but really 2029 is that landmark, that date that the NFL wants to have scheduled and wants to have all these things worked out in order to get the best the best contracts that they can get out of these streaming and broadcasting deals in 2029, because they have that opt-out option as well. Also, on the topic of money and the NFL trying to gain more revenue, not only will they do that with the international games, obviously, but if you do increase it to 18 games, I know I mentioned this before when talking about this idea back when Roger Goodell mentioned it. If you were to have those 18 games, talks about a second bye week are also being brought up. So if that gets incorporated plus the extra week, that would really push the Super Bowl back to President's Day weekend. And I made it pretty lighthearted joke about it. Everyone gets more time off. People can stay up later, so you get more viewerships, and that's really a serious thing that the NFL wants to happen, wants to, benefit off of, because more people watching, you get more revenue in that way, and nobody has to work the next day or go to school, so you get even more people tuning into that game, watching it, bigger revenue for the NFL. That is also something to consider, and from that point, really, that's where it all sort of sits right now. With these negotiations, again, it's not something that will happen pretty soon or in December or something like that, probably until next offseason, but it is starting to gain more traction, and I wanted to bring it up here just because it is something that is real in consideration, even if the NFL won't admit it right now. It is something that I expect to happen. The NFL players also were asked about it. They've given their thoughts on it. Nick Bosa, Brock Purdy, owners. I know the Giants owner, John Mara, has touched on it, and he has said that, he feels most owners are in favor of it. So when all those guys get together and are on the same page, this is a movement that will happen eventually. And then I'm sure we'll talk about it more once some more details come out on it. But as of right now, that's where these things sort of stand in the negotiations over a new CBA for the 18-game regular season to go through, as well as maybe more revenue split for the players as well. But let me know again what you guys think on that. Are you in favor of the 18-game regular season, or do you hate it? Do you hate the offseason structure changes that could also be happening? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. But that will allow us to move on to the next segment, or actually the next break. And then on the other side, we're going to talk about some new structures to the kickoff rule, how the new structures, the new rules will impact kickers around the NFL, and how they might not be as valuable on kickoffs as originally thought. And also, we're going to get into the news on Hard Knocks that the Bears were selected as the team to feature on this year's edition of the training camp version of Hard Knocks in 2024. We're going to give you all the details on that. We'll be right back in just a few seconds.